Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's 1 p.m. and we're going to call the November 29th meeting of the Planning Advisory Committee to order. And if I could have a motion to adopt this afternoon's agenda. Member Willick, seconded by Councillor Warren. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Is there any declarations of pecuniary interest with today's agenda? Seeing and hearing none, just before we move into public meeting reports, I'd just like to acknowledge that this is Director Hawley's last Planning Advisory Committee meeting, and on behalf of myself and the committee, I'd like to wish you well on your retirement and thank you for your time over the years with the Planning Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Chair and members of committee. I've truly enjoyed my time here. I can honestly say I learned more here in 15 years than I did down the GTA in 17. So it's truly a very great and caring community, and they take their planning very seriously up here. So as I found out many times, but you know, it's I just sort of take away the passion that everyone has here for their community and getting things done. And it's totally different down in the GTA because it's almost like persona non grata, but here everybody knows everybody, and it is a real community. So I've really enjoyed meeting everybody and working with everybody, and hopefully the next director sort of takes us on the same way. Anyways, I want to thank you all. Take care.
Thanks, Richard. All the best. We'll move right into item 3 on today's agenda, public meeting reports. As required under the Planning Act, a public meeting is being held prior to the committee making a recommendation on these applications. All recommendations that come out of this afternoon will be forwarded to the next regular council meeting on December 12th. The purpose of this public hearing is to allow the committee to gather information on the applications before us, to hear those wishing to make submissions on applications, and to allow the committee to ask questions of the applicants, interested parties, and staff. Everyone speaking today is requested to state their name for the public record, and in the interest of time, the committee respectfully asks that you keep your comments to no more than 5 minutes. When the appropriate time comes after the planner makes their presentation, members of the public will be provided an opportunity to speak to any public meeting item on today's agenda. At that point, please either unmute yourself and turn on your video, or come to the podium and press the speak button to activate the microphone. And with that, we will move into item 3.1, Plan 2023-063, an application to amend the Village of Bobcaygeon zoning bylaw 16-78 on vacant land on Duke Street, Market Square, Nonprofit Housing Corporation. Matt Alexander, go ahead. Oh, you're still muted, Matt.
There. I think I should be okay now.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Sorry about the delay there. Good afternoon, Chair and members of committee. We'll move into the first meeting here. This is regarding report number Plan 2023-063, Village of Bobcaygeon zoning bylaw amendment for vacant land located on Duke Street, as you can see in the location map on the screen. The application is to amend the Village of Bobcaygeon zoning bylaw 16-78 to permit a 2-story, 22-unit affordable rental apartment building. The subject land is identified as vacant land on Duke Street and described as Lot 17 and 18, registered plan number 32 in the Village of Bobcaygeon. The site is currently designated as urban under the Victoria County Official Plan and is zoned restricted industrial under the Village of Bobcaygeon zoning bylaw 16-87. Just a note, the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan as it relates to this area is still currently under appeal, and therefore, or the secondary plan is under appeal, and therefore the Victoria County official plan continues to apply to the site. The application has been made by EcoView Consulting Services on behalf of Market Square Nonprofit Housing Corporation. The applicant is proposing to rezone the site to permit the development of a 2-story, 22-unit rental apartment building containing 1 community room and office, 1 maintenance room, and 1 garbage room. The intent is for this to become an affordable rental unit apartment building operated by the nonprofit organization. The applicant intends to consult with the municipality to determine the appropriate type of affordable housing to be provided, whether it's rent geared to income or rent controlled, but this is not currently confirmed, and it is not a matter that can be imposed through the zoning bylaw. To facilitate the residential development, the applicant is proposing to rezone the property from restricted industrial to urban residential type 4 exception 12. And the site-specific exception 12 is intended to resolve a number of matters of non-compliance with the standard residential type 4 zone, which I will discuss in a little bit. Materials submitted by the applicant include a planning rationale report, a comprehensive urban design analysis, geotechnical and hydrogeological investigation report, preliminary functional servicing and stormwater management report, a traffic impact brief, a parking justification study, a Phase 1 environmental site assessment, entrance review confirmation letter prepared by the City of Kawartha Lakes, a plan of survey, a topographic survey, a site plan, proposed floor plans and building elevations, a site grading plan, site servicing plan, pre-development drainage boundaries, and post-development drainage boundaries. All of the reports and drawings submitted with the application were circulated by the appropriate staff and agencies. And I will now go into a discussion of some of the policies that apply. Starting with the Provincial Policy Statement 2020. The site is located within the settlement area of Bobcaygeon and designated as urban. Therefore, the policies of Section 1.13 of the Provincial Policy Statement related to settlement areas apply to the site. Settlement areas are intended to be the focus of growth and development with densities and a mix of land uses which efficiently use land and resources. The proposed development represents an efficient use of land and resources, as the site is currently vacant and underutilized and can be accommodated by existing municipal services. Section 1.4.3 of the PPS provides the planning authority shall provide for an appropriate range and mix of housing options and densities to meet projected market-based and affordable housing needs. The proposed development supports these policies of the PPS. It's intended to provide affordable rental apartment units. Moving on to the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. Section 2212 provides that the vast majority of growth will be directed to settlement areas. And as mentioned, the proposed development is within the built boundary of Bobcaygeon, will be served by existing municipal services and with the existing amenities in the surrounding area, including a local park. This will help support the achievement of complete communities. Also, under Section 2214, the proposed development supports including a diverse mix of land uses and supports providing diversity of housing options and affordable housing. The proposal represents a compact form with adequate landscape buffers and screening, which are implemented around the site to improve site aesthetics, as well as to reduce visual impact and enhance the existing vegetation of the site. A little bit closer to the ground, the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan, as mentioned, the policies related to the Bobcaygeon secondary plan and the Kawartha Lakes official plan are still currently under appeal, and therefore the Victoria County official plan continues to apply. So under the Victoria County official plan, the subject site is designated urban. This is a broad land use designation. It does not specifically limit it to industrial uses, as the site is currently zoned industrial. Predominant uses of the land in the urban designation shall be for a broad range of residential, recreational, institutional, industrial, cultural, or commercial uses. Section 6.2.3 of the official plan provides that within the urban designation, development should proceed on the basis of the full range of services which are provided or anticipated in the community, meaning sewer and water. Section 6.2.6.1b details policies applicable to medium density residential uses, which this is an example of. Medium density development is permitted within the urban designation. That can be in the form of row or cluster dwellings and apartments. Apartments are permitted for a maximum density of 60 dwelling units per net hectare, and the number of floors in an apartment building shall not exceed 3 floors, or a maximum height of 11 meters. Medium density residential is also only permitted on full municipal services, which this site is. Medium density shall be located on a major road or on a local road connecting directly to a major road. The proposed development fits within the medium density residential classification prescribed by the Victoria County official plan. It proposes apartment dwelling units, which are a permitted use within that designation. It does not exceed the maximum density requirement of 60 dwelling units per net hectare, and the building is 2 stories or 7.5 meters tall, or it's proposed to be 2 stories or 7.5 meters tall, and will proceed on full municipal services. Further, the site is accessed by Duke Street, which is classified as an urban arterial in the City of Kawartha Lakes Transportation Master Plan, and Duke Street provides direct access to Kawartha Lakes Road 36, which is identified as a major road, so it meets that test as well. Under section 5.7.2, intensification is encouraged throughout the built-up area. Intensification should generally achieve higher densities than the surrounding area and achieve an appropriate transition of built form to the adjacent areas. The design and architectural built form of the proposed building, along with the landscaping that's proposed, has been designed to provide a transition to the neighboring single-family residential uses. You can see in the site plan here a number of trees that are indicated to be planted along the southern frontage, as well as on the eastern side of the property. The proposed development will implement a range of and mix of housing options for the neighborhood and the broader community, and help address affordable housing needs in the community. In summary, in terms of the official plan, staff feel that the proposed development can be supported by the existing municipal services. However, additional technical review is required. The proposed development will not result in negative impacts to the existing capacity of the road network, based on the existing capacity of the road network and the number of units that are proposed here. But again, a technical review of this is required still. The phase 1 ESA indicates that further investigation is not required, so a phase 2 is not going to be required. And the existing study can support a record of site condition, which is required since the use would be changing from an industrial to a residential use. Staff also feel that the proposed built form and architectural style of the proposed development is appropriate and fits into the local context of the neighborhood. An urban design analysis was submitted in support of the proposed development. The built form of the proposal is compatible with surrounding area and implements a form of intensification with a transition to its higher density that's appropriate given the local context. Staff also feel that the proposed landscaping will provide adequate buffers to surrounding land uses and create a more pleasing aesthetic to the public realm. Staff also feel that access to the proposed development from Duke Street is appropriate. However, but Public Works staff have confirmed that an entrance from Duke Street into the site would be permitted subject to the fulfillment of various criteria, including replacement of the existing sidewalk, replacement of the 300 millimeter diameter CSP culvert, and reparation of ditches and installation of an asphalt apron. But as I mentioned, there are several technical studies which still require technical review and commenting. And we won't be able to provide a definitive recommendation on conformity with the official plan until those technical studies technical reviews are completed. Related to the zoning bylaw, the property is currently zoned restricted industrial in the Village of Bobcaygeon zoning bylaw. Residential uses are not permitted within this zone. The proposal would change the zoning from M1, restricted industrial, to urban residential type 4 with a site-specific exception. The R4 zone permits apartment dwellings with certain requirements, which the proposal does not meet. And so that is the purpose of the exception 12 that is proposed. The specific criteria that are not met by the proposal, the maximum density for the R4 zone is 1 dwelling unit per 289 square meters, and the proposed is 1 unit per 183 square meters of lot area. So that represents a slight increase in density. The minimum front yard setback in the R4 zone is 7.5 meters, and what is proposed is 4 meters. The minimum side yard setback is 3 meters or half the height of the building, whichever is greater. And in this case, that would represent 3.75 meters based on the building height, proposed building height. What's proposed is a 3 meter side yard setback. And minimum parking spaces. So the standard parking requirement in the R4 zone is 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit, which would total 44 parking spaces. What is proposed is 1 parking space per dwelling unit, or 22 parking spaces. In reviewing these requested amendments or exceptions to the zoning bylaw, staff feel that the changes are reasonable and meet the intent of the official plan. The increase in density is minimal and still within the maximum density permitted by the, in effect, county official plan. The reduced setbacks are appropriate given the landscaping which is being provided, and the parking reduction. We are still waiting for a technical review of the parking justification study, and so we would reserve our comments until that has been completed. Moving on to public consultation. So notice of the application was delivered to property owners within 120 meters of the subject site in alignment with public notice procedures, and signage was placed on the property notifying neighbors of the application. 1 public comment was received after the report was written, but before this meeting. A number of comments, and then as far as agency reviews, it was circulated to all appropriate agencies and departments. At the time of the report being written, we had not received any comments from commenting agencies, but since then, we have received a number of comments from technical agencies, and but additional time is required to review those and provide the applicant with an opportunity to respond to those. Overall, staff feel that the proposed development represents good land use planning by utilizing currently vacant lands to provide a range and mix of housing options in the community, supporting both the provincial policy statement and the growth plan objectives. We also feel that from a planning policy perspective, the development conforms with the relevant policies of the in effect official plan. The property is currently zoned restricted industrial, which does not permit residential uses, and the proposed zoning bylaw amendment would change that zone to urban residential type 4 with site-specific exceptions to resolve other issues of compliance as mentioned. We feel that the built form and massing proposed, as indicated in the urban brief, is appropriate and successfully demonstrates a form of intensification, which is mindful to transition to adjacent residential uses. And we feel that the proposed development is appropriate given the local context. However, as mentioned, there are a number of outstanding technical reviews that still need to be completed and reviewed. And for that reason, we are requesting or recommending that the application be referred back to staff until technical reviews can be completed. And I believe that's everything on the presentation. Yes.
Thank you for that. Committee, any questions of Mr. Alexander at this time? Member Barkwell?
Thank you very much, Matt. There's a lot of detail with this, and looks like it's been on the development board for a while, or moving along. I noticed that most of the studies and plans have been with the planning department as since February or March of this year, some prior to that. And I see in your report that the main things that you're looking is the concern related to servicing. And I see in your report that you're looking into that now. You seem to be okay with parking. You're saying that just going to 22 parking spaces, and we've done that with other similar group homes or affordable housing. We've reduced the parking spaces. You seem comfortable with that. And you also talk about the road capacity, and there has been a traffic study that was done back in March. So the technical reports, are those, you just have a couple of those, you said just came in recently. Are these concerning these three major issues that you have? And what kind of timeline do you think you'll be able to have a look at those? This project seems to tick 95% of the boxes here. And I'd just like to know if it should move forward, and I wondered how close they are.
Through you, Chair, we would anticipate that we can compile those comments and go back to the applicant for any revisions or any further study, probably within a couple of weeks, as long as we have that direction to. As long as there is direction referred back to staff to continue with the application. How long it takes for them to get back to us, of course, we don't know. But I don't have in front of me exactly what we still have outstanding, given the few comments that we did receive between the deadline for this report and the meeting. So I apologize for that. I'm trying to organize my screen so that I'm not sharing my whole desktop to try to look that up. But I think we may only be outstanding on one or two technical reviews, and we just need to review the ones that we have received.
That's excellent. Thank you very much. Very much look forward to that in January.
Any further questions, Councillor Warren?
Through you, is it possible to ask a question of the applicant at some point?
Yep, once we get to that.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any further questions from committee? All right, if there's none, does the applicant, owner, or their agent wish to speak to the application?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Aditya Srinivas, planner from EcoView Consulting. And today I'm representing Market Square Nonprofit Housing Corporation. As noted, the applicant is proposing to develop a 2-story, 22-unit apartment building on the subject property located at part of Lot 17 and 18, Concession 10, Geographic Township of Verulam, Bobcaygeon. All 22 units will be affordable rental housing units. And as Matt noted, the type of affordable housing, whether it'll be rent geared to income or rent controlled, will be determined through further consultation with the city, of course, after the decision on this application is made. Also to note that building will be designed to blend with the surrounding area to the greatest extent possible, so that it is consistent with the established low density neighborhood character located to the east of the property. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment requests a change of zone from the restricted industrial zone to urban residential type 4 exception zone, mainly to recognize the multi-residential use and also to recognize a few zoning deficiencies related to density, parking, front yard, and interior side yard setbacks. I believe both the owner and the applicant, Stephen Oliver from Market Square Nonprofit and Stephen Curtis from MBW Engineering, are here, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thanks for that. Committee, any questions of the applicant? Councillor Warren?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Who do you envision, or what do you envision the makeup of the renters to be in this development?
I believe right now, I mean, you can actually ask Stephen Oliver, who I believe is over here, but I believe this will be determined after further consultation with the city. Yeah, thanks.
So of the 22 units, a percentage, and we're not sure of the exact percentage, probably 40%, 30% will be just ordinary residential rentals. And then the remaining will be for people that have suffered from mental illness at some time and are now considered ready for what we refer to internally as next step housing. So they're capable of living on their own and that sort of thing. Just a quick note that we've run the building in Bobcaygeon for 25, coming on 26 years with no significant problems. So this is intended to be the same.
And that was going to be my second question, and have lived in Bobcaygeon for some time, and you're right, it hasn't become an issue. Thank you.
Any further questions? Member Willock?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just for the record, can you say what facility that is in Bobcaygeon so other people are aware?
That'd be Market Square apartment buildings.
140 Main Street.
140 Main Street.
Any further questions of the applicant at this time? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, gentlemen.
Mr. Chair, before I go away, I just want to address a comment to Director Hawley. I've had the pleasure of working with him for a ton of years. He's always been a solution finder rather than a problem maker, and you are going to be sorely missed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pat.
All right, at this point in time, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak to the application? Is there anybody online, Joel?
Yes.
Okay, we're just going to deal with the online people first, and then I'll come to the people in council chambers. It's just easier to keep track of. So I believe we've got Marion Fitzpatrick. Are you with us? If you can just unmute yourself, Marion.
Okay. Am
Go
I
ahead.
muted now?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay,
Go ahead.
great. Okay, cool. Okay. I came from a conference this weekend where the topics could have related strictly to anything political, or could have related to what was happening in the world at large. Housing immediately became the #1 topic. I don't know if you are aware of this or not, but apparently I've been informed that we actually have an encampment of people who are living in sort of a tent city in the woods in our cemeteries. That was some of the saddest news I have ever received in my life. I've been on neighborhoods board. I've been on neighborhoods board, neighborhood housing in Lindsay. This is my 30th year. Oh wow, I am getting up there, and that I thought I'd heard it all and maybe even seen it all, but until I heard about that and saw a little bit of evidence of that, I realized I hadn't. The Duke Street is a lovely little short, quiet street in Bobcaygeon. This development will hurt no one. Traffic will not be severely increased nor interfered with. If you're interested in the architectural design, just have a look at the way that the old health unit is built into the hill. That's the design that sort of inspired, I believe, Duke Street. It's designed to fit into its natural environment, and it's going to be beautiful. This has been going on for some time. I'm asking you, please do everything you can to expedite the development of this housing project. Please, with technical reports and everything else, I know they take time. I know they must be investigated, especially when agencies send in reports. But please do it as quickly as possible. We need housing. The units are beautiful. They will not upset the urban environment of Bobcaygeon. You will get people off the streets. It's mixed marketing, so it should be sustainable in time. It might need a little help here and there, but every housing development does. So I'm begging you, please expedite this quickly. We need it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mrs. Fitzpatrick. Is there anyone else from the public wishing to speak to the application? I don't think we have anyone else left online.
Good afternoon. My name is Doug Ford. I am the property owner of the neighboring and partially surrounding property to the proposed development. With respect to the comments from the previous speaker, I appreciate that there's a need in communities for sustainable living arrangements for some. However, I don't think that should necessarily be discounted at the expense of other people whose interests may be contrary to that. I have concerns about the proposed development. One of the main concerns that has come up today is it's got to do with traffic and the reduced parking that the development is proposing from the standard 24 parking or 44 parking units for a typical building like this to 22. That, I believe, will have an impact on myself because my property that is next door isn't developed either. And when we purchased our property there 20 years ago, the M1 restricted zoning of this lot was one of the reasons why we purchased it, because we knew there were restrictions there and it was going to ensure the privacy for our enjoyment of our investment. The potential of the traffic, pedestrian and vehicle, I have concerns about with respect to originally when this project was brought to the public. There was a public meeting, and it was proposed to be 15 units. It was proposed at that time that it was going to be affordable housing, and there was a plea made that, you know, this was needed to help people that were underprivileged. Today I come to the meeting, I'm hearing that now they're planning it being mixed market, which partially, in my opinion, takes away from that original argument that this needed to be built because it was solely for underprivileged people. The location of this, you can't tell from the current picture that's up there, but there was a picture with a red square on it. Yes, that one there. That picture is inaccurate. As you can see in the top part of the photograph, that's Tommy Anderson Park. This proposed development does not go to the boundary of Tommy Anderson Park. Our property goes the full length of the back of that. The park is a big attraction to people in a neighborhood. To get to that park, they have to go through my property. I don't really want a lot of traffic coming through my property for people seeking the enjoyment of Tommy Anderson Park, and I don't want the additional traffic. Currently, I deal with a lot of traffic issues with people coming down Jane Street. Jane Street dead ends into my driveway. Some GPS platforms incorrectly lead people down Jane Street instead of Duke, so they're seeking, like tourists, trying to get to Fenelon Falls, often turn down Jane Street and end up in my driveway. This would exacerbate that problem if people were coming to this particular development and they're coming down Jane Street to get to it. You know, I know this might not be the most popular position, this particular project, but I wanted my concerns heard, and thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else from the public wishing to speak to the application? Councillor Warren, you have a question?
Yeah. To the gentleman who was just up. Is there, or maybe staff, is there I can't envision a fence behind. Is it fenced at that portion of the park? Yes. It is. Okay, thank you. Because I envision it right now, and it looked like you could almost get to the park through one of the lots there.
So if you go back to the picture with the red square, so for people to access the park, your choices are to go back out onto Duke Street, head west up to Balaclava, up Balaclava, then onto Duke Street to access the park at its entranceway. Or you would have to, as the shortcut will most likely be, it'll be to come through our property, because the access to the park on Jane Street is at an easement at the end of Jane and my driveway.
Okay. Any further comment from the public? Anyone else from the public wishing to speak to the application? Going to call a third and final time for anyone else from the public wishing to speak to this application. Okay, seeing and hearing none, does the applicant wish to respond to any of the comments made? You're good? Okay. Committee? Sorry. Okay. Committee, after considering all the comments, what is your recommendation to council? Member Barkwell?
That the report plan 2023-063, Village of Bobcaygeon zoning bylaw amendment, the vacant land on Duke Street, be received for information, and that report plan 2023-063, Village of Bobcaygeon zoning bylaw amendment vacant land on Duke Street be referred back to staff to address the public and agency comments and for further review of the technical studies.
Is there a seconder for Member Barkwell's motion? Member O'Reilly? Any discussion? Member O'Reilly?
Yes, maybe, do you wish to speak to it? Okay, no, I'll just speak briefly to it. First of all, I heard the comments today. I know this project's been in the work for with Canadian Mental Health for many, many years. I was on the board myself for a while, and it's been discussed a long time coming. I think, actually, when you look at the physical structure itself, I think this could be a template for many other small municipalities for thinking about helping or working towards affordable housing. I can understand the concerns of the neighbors because there's certainly, when you have something this magnitude when moving this close, it's certainly something to be concerned about. My brother and I had a number of rental units in the town of Lindsay for a number of years, and we took many people from the Canadian Mental Health Association as tenants. And they were no different than most other people we had as tenants. And so some of the concerns can be alleviated, I believe. And I think it's a mix is a great thing. So we'll see what the staff comes back, and hopefully fairly soon with the report. And we'll go from there. But I certainly speak in favor of this project, and we'll need many more of these throughout our municipality.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, calling the question. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. That brings us to item 3.2, Plan 2023-064, an application to amend the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan and Township of Verulam zoning bylaw 6-87 at land adjacent to Peller Court, Bobcaygeon, Rolling Hills Residents Association. Matt, I guess you're tackling this one again?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. As mentioned, this is related to property known as Block 18 on Peller Court, and it is an application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw to acknowledge the placement of existing docks and allow permission for the development of future docks on the subject site. You can see the subject lands here. This is a block within a plan of subdivision, which does not itself have road frontage. It is not a development block. It is more of a shoreline block. The subject lands have approximately 295 meters of shoreline frontage on Pigeon Lake, and it's approximately 1.43 acres in size. The current zoning permits only a single communal dock for the area. However, there are 6 pre-existing docks which are located there and have been identified as historic accessory structures. The official plan designates the lands as Development Plan Area 5, Nature Reserve, Provincially Significant Wetland, and Fish Habitat. And the subject lands are zoned Open Space Special Exception 10 in the Township of Verulam zoning bylaw. The application is submitted by DM Wills Associates Limited on behalf of 1570194 Ontario Inc., care of Keith Morale. The amendments seek to provide an exception, site-specific exception to the official plan designation to recognize the existing docks on the subject lands and to allow permission for the development of additional docks on the site. To facilitate this, the applicant is also proposing to amend the zoning bylaw to add special site-specific exceptions to permit the docks. They also are applying to remove beach as a permitted use, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. Materials submitted along with the application were a planning rationale report, comprehensive environmental impact study, a concept plan, Stage 1 and Stage 2 archaeological assessment, conceptual site plan layout, and a survey. Some of the relevant policies at the provincial level include policies in the provincial policy statement, which require that no development occur within provincially significant wetlands, and that development only be permitted within fish habitat in accordance with provincial and federal regulations and requirements. Development is also not permitted within lands adjacent to fish habitat unless it has been demonstrated that there will be no negative impacts. As I mentioned, an environmental impact study was submitted with this. However, we are still awaiting technical review of that. Moving on to the Kawartha Lakes official plan, the lands are designated nature reserve within the Development Plan Area 5 designation. And the intent of that was to ensure that the lands remain undisturbed. Section 31.13.3 of the official plan prescribes the nature reserve policies, and the limited criteria should be considered when a development application is received. The criteria includes land shown as nature reserve shall remain undisturbed. A comprehensive environmental impact study and concept plan would be required, which has been provided. And the stage 1 and stage 2 archaeological assessment is required as well, which was submitted. Staff note that based on the findings of the EIS, the historic disturbance of the shoreline has not yet resulted in impact to the nature reserve, which encompasses wetlands and fish habitat. But as I mentioned, we are still awaiting technical review of that study. The property is currently zoned open space special exception 10, which does not permit docks. It permits passive recreation uses and a beach. A walkway or path is also permitted, but no buildings or structures are permitted. And actually, let's look at the, so as you can see, it is very much shoreline property, not exactly stable dry land. The abutting lands are zoned open space 3, which only permits a floating dock and mooring facility permitted during the boating season. And you can see that near the bottom of the map here, the existing multi-boat dock. The applicant proposes to rezone the subject land as open space special exception to permit the installation of additional docks as identified in this concept plan, and to remove the beach as a permitted use. The application was circulated. Notice of the application was circulated to property owners within 500 meters of the subject property, and a notice board was erected close to the property, so near the intersection, to notify local neighbors. No public comments were received at the time of the report writing. Comments were received from building and engineering as well as from local First Nations, but we have not received technical comments on the EIS, which is the key consideration for this application. So as we await those comments, we do recommend that the application be referred back to staff until such time that the technical reviews have been completed and we can provide a detailed recommendation related to consistency with the provincial policy statement and conformity with the official plan.
Thanks for that, Matt. Committee, any questions of Mr. Alexander at this time? Member Barkwell?
Yeah, thank you very much. I was just curious, who owns the present dock that's there, and who will own the other docks? I'm not sure. I think, is the road there an unassumed road? So is it still the developer that owns those docks and that property? How does that work out?
Through you, Chair, my understanding is that it is owned by the property owner, but I think they can probably speak to that in more detail.
Okay, any further questions of Mr. Alexander? Member O'Reilly?
Just a quick one. On the bottom of page 25, under the Township of Burlem Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw, it says, however, the applicant has not conveyed how passive human-scale activities such as accessing and using the beach is incompatible with the proposed use. I'm just wondering what you kind of mean by that, or what you're hoping to get for an answer.
Through you, Chair. That comment is really related to the justification for removing the beach as a permitted use. It's not entirely clear what the justification for removing that use from the zoning bylaw is, and I don't want to speculate on that. So we were just simply indicating that permitted uses are passive recreational uses, and we're not sure why the beach is not compatible with that.
Councillor Warren?
Through you. So is the association on board with this, or this is just going through the owner? Because it's got a little bit of history.
I believe there was a letter in the package
Okay, maybe I
from
missed
the
that.
association. Any further questions of Mr. Alexander at this time? Okay, if there's none, does the applicant, owner, or their agent wish to speak to the application?
Yes, I'd like to speak to the application.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon, through the chair. Good afternoon, members of committee and the public. My name is Marnie Saunders. I'm a planner with DM Wills, and I'm here on behalf of the owner and applicant for the OPA and ZBA for this item on today's agenda. I'd just like to respond to a couple of the comments that were made by the committee today, and then answer any other questions that the public or the committee may have. Matt, as he explained, did a good summary of the proposed amendments and the applicable policies, so I won't reiterate that, but as he's just explained, we're proposing to recognize the existing docks on the property as well as 3 additional docks by way of an official plan and zoning bylaw amendments. We agree with the majority of, we agree with the comments and summary made by staff in their report. One item we did want to speak to, which was also brought up by the committee just now, was regarding the removal of the beach use, which is currently a permitted use on that block. So the beach use is the only area within that block that doesn't require additional vegetation or native planting, and that's specified in the zoning bylaw. The purpose of that is so the residents can have access and use the beach area for their enjoyment. That poses a larger risk for disturbance to the features rather than the walkways, which are required to be vegetated and planted around with native species to ensure that there is no other disturbance other than the areas where those walkways are located. The docks are simply an extension of those walkways to allow access to the waters without providing or without the potential for any other disturbance beyond those walkways or that dock. It would also allow for additional plantings or native species to grow in and around those areas. And by removing the beach use, it also removes the exception that that area doesn't need to be vegetated or planted. So we feel that the docks would actually have less of a potential impact on the features rather than the use of that area as a beach. So that's basically how we're responding or addressing that comment. The block is owned by the resident group or the Ontario Holding Company. That is made up of all the landowners along Peller Court. The representative for the resident group is here today to speak, so he can speak more on the ownership matters. But those lands were previously owned by the developer. They are now under the ownership of the landowners, and it's our understanding that all the landowners as part of that association are on board for or support the official plan and zoning bylaw amendments that are being put forth. I believe that was all the comments and questions that I heard from the committee so far. If there's any other comments or questions that I can answer, I'd be happy to do so. And if there's any update in terms of the timing for those technical studies, we would appreciate just being advised of that as well. As Matt indicated, our reports that we submitted demonstrated that there would be no impact from the docks from an environmental standpoint, and also ensured that there was no archaeological significance in that area as well that potentially could be impacted by the docks as well. So I think that covers everything that I wanted to cover so far. If there's, like I said, if there's any other questions or comments, I'd be happy to address those as well.
Thank you, Ms. Saunders. Any questions? Member Barkwell?
Just to follow up on the first question, the new 6 docks, who that'll belong to the association, so how will they be distributed, or how do people decide who uses which docks? And I have another question is, why would you not be able to still use the beach as well as those 6 docks that are spread out over 500 and some odd meters?
So the ownership of those docks, I'll defer that to, like I said, the representative for the Landowners Association. There's 6 existing docks. We're proposing 3 more for a total of 9. It's my understanding that they will be individually for each one of those landowners that has shoreline frontage, and that's been agreed upon through the association. The removal of the beach, it's not necessarily like the beach use potentially could have more of a disturbance on the shoreline. You could still use it as a beach, but the main use is to provide access, and that's why they don't have to vegetate it or plant on it. And potentially it could inherit more disturbance from that than having the dock act as walkways to access the beach and not disturbing any of the other lands in between the docks. So you can still have natural vegetation growth and native species and plantings, where if you're using that land as a beach, you need access and room to use it as a beach, which could provide or could potentially have more disturbance.
Thank you, I get it.
Thank you. And I believe, is it Mr. Morelli? Did you want to respond to the dock ownership question? Go ahead. Go ahead. If you can use the mic, it's just anybody online can't hear what's going on without it. Sorry.
Should I just refer to the notes? Yeah. Okay. So again, going through and on behalf of my English father, my surname is pronounced Morley. So he'd be scolding you right now.
I apologize.
No problem. Yeah, again, my name's Keith Morley. Basically background, my wife and I lived in the GTA, but we vacationed up here for over 30 years with our family. Both of us decided this is where we wanted to be. We liked the nice people, et cetera. So we actually bought into Rolling Hills 2018 and moved up subsequently when I retired. Okay. From there, in 2019 is when what's the word, Pat? Was elected to be president, or, strong-armed. But in any event, that's when I became president of the association. So the first thing going through the notes, and I know there's been a lot of confusion in the community over what is the numbered company, what is Rolling Hills. Okay, so just to be brief, the numbered company is a registered Ontario corporation. It was set up by the developer. It owns all common properties, or blocks as referred to. There are actually 4. Okay? And so the shareholders of that corporation are in fact the landowners or the homeowners. So nobody else can be an owner of that numbered company with exception of the homeowners. Okay? It has its own bylaws. It operates on a not-for-profit basis. There's also the association, which is the Rolling Hills Estates Homeowners Association, which we use the acronym RHEA. RHEA is also only the membership are the homeowners. So in essence, what we've done through bylaws, without boring the whole thing, they're integrated, fully integrated. I'm the president of both companies, you can say, or association/company. but that's how we operate it. As it is, the developer has been no longer, or is no longer involved. Okay, number one, or that's number four probably, sorry. All decisions that RIA makes, we have our annual meetings and special meetings, no different than any other group. Decisions are made under the corporate rules, which is 50 plus 1%. However, we do try to make an effort to achieve consensus on any issue. Okay? And then, as I said, the vote will be done. Really, as far as RIA, we took control, is the way I will put it, once the developer was released by the city from his obligations around the 2016 timeframe. We weren't involved in that, but that's what we understand. But at this particular time, we inherited the issues, and and we're working to get it resolved. Okay, but that's what I said I wanted to make, because as I've taken over as the president, there's a lot of misconceptions about the development. And frankly, and I don't have this in the notes, and frankly, what I want to say is what my wife and I are extremely pleased with is when we moved up here, we joined a community. And I know darn well that if I got an issue, I can phone anybody, including Michael or Pat, who are both homeowners in there, and they will be there within minutes to help. Okay, that's what we want, that's what we love. Okay? So if you look at RIA, what do we do? First, I want to talk about the beach. The beach was actually, if you look at the diagram up there, you see that little diagonal at the top, which is the north end? The beach is actually on block 22, which is right next to it. Okay, so it's not actually in block 18 as I've looked at the maps. So if you think about it, the developer put in the beach right in front of his property. He had the property, it's called Lot 9, which circles around at the end of that circle, okay? Really, it's useless to most of the other homeowners in the development because there's no walkthrough from any of the Lakeview properties from the other side or, let's say, et cetera. So if you're on the other side of the street there on the left hand of the board, you've got to go down to the road, go down to the common area, so you're turning left, then you turn left and you walk all that distance up to the beach. So what happened was when, going through, but we really didn't get any files transferred over when the developer left. So one of the things I did when I first started was I wrote to, TSW, I wrote to KRCA, and tried to build our files, saying permits, whatever, okay? When I contacted the KRCA, a little bit surprised. They said, yeah, we'll conform and give you anything you want. However, you do know there's an outstanding violation. And I said, no, I haven't heard about that one. So in any event, and this is what I've concluded, when the development went in, the zoning permitted the beach. However, KRCA was not on board with that. So they reviewed it, they issued, which I now have a copy of, a remediation agreement to the developer. And certain things were supposed to be done to improve, not to take the beach out, but to improve the beach. Like there were big armor stones, and as I understand it, sand was brought in, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the developer didn't do anything with the remediation agreement, so you can say practically, I guess, RIA inherited it. So in any event, what we did, and this is one of my neighbors, Michael, we talked to their violations officer. We had a long chat. We said, frankly, we don't want the beach. It's of no use to the community, basically. And, we'd like to let it go natural, which is what we've done, over since the developer left about 2017 forward. So, and with the violations officer, it was during COVID, so we exchanged pictures, and there were current pictures with him. And, he was very cooperative. I felt like a neophyte because I didn't know all the processes either, but he was exceptionally good at that. And he said, I'm lifting the violation. So that's where, for the zoning, taking it out is fine because we didn't want it in the first place. It's naturalized. Get into, the site visit in a second, but so the violation, that came up in the pre-con meeting. Again, we weren't aware of it. And so that's how we want to operate, though. We want to conform to the various, zoning, whatever you want to call it, KRCA rules. Now, concerning the, again, the docks, let me just get that, June 30th of 2022, we arranged for a site visit. Okay, and we invited the various agencies, but KRCA and TSW showed up. Then GHD was there, who are the environmentalists, I'll call them. And of course, DM Wills was there as our partner here. What I would say is we were very fortunate because both representatives of the TSW and the KRCA had been to the property around the 2015-16 timeframe. Okay? And basically their comments were they were very pleased with the naturalization it's concerned. TSW, of their interest, they looked at the shoreline and virtually what we've left most of it to be restored, naturally. And what I mean by that, the bulrushes that are in front, well, in front of my place, when I first bought it, there was a nice big opening and all that. Now you can't, you can see the lake if you're high enough, and we are rolling hills for a reason. So, but that's where she commented, Beth. I don't know if anybody knows her, but she very much commented on the restoration that was happening. So she was pleased. Same with KRCA. He in particular wanted to see the beach. For the violation, not that he didn't trust me. I don't know why. My mother would say not to trust me, but in any event, he went down. He was very pleased. He said, this is better than I had expected. So that's, the points I want to make, again, because there seems to be confusion around the beach. So when we looked at it at the end during the discussion, because of course we did talk about the proposed development, what we're looking for, and we have had the EIS. I've had the pleasure of reading it. And it is, in my opinion, it supports the development. It doesn't show species at risk are an issue, et cetera, as you go down the list. And that's where the individual from GHD, which used to be Niblet, but anyway, that's where he has specifically suggested or plotted on there, it's a recommendation, not a suggestion, where the docks, these 9 docks should be located to mitigate any environmental impact. Okay, but there are no species at risk. There's no spawning happening in the area, except for perhaps some bluegill, but I think they spawn everywhere, so that's not an issue. They also, when we had the site visit, we talked to the KRCA, and when he toured or looked at the whole property, they took a bunch of pictures, etc. But that's when we had a chat, and what he was talking about is the KRCA policy of a 1-to-1 ratio, meaning that if we put a pathway down to, from the homeowner's property to the dock, that has to be, so that would interfere with whatever's been there. That would have to be replaced by naturalized area somewhere else. And that's where it said if you can achieve that, then, they have to review all the technical studies like we've heard before, but in essence, they offered that if there's no issues from that standpoint, then he would support it. Okay? Now, I think the big one, that I think is somewhat maybe unique.
If I can just get you to wrap it up.
Yep.
We're past the 5 minutes,
okay.
And I think we've answered committee's question.
Well, it is, but I just want one more comment in there, okay? Because I think it's important. Is basically RIA, the members have delegated the management and responsibility for the common areas, et cetera, to the executive. So, for example, what we have done, I'm a heavy believer personally in governance as well. So what I've got my little prop here, but what we've done and implemented for the common dock and the private docks for that matter, if you allow us to put them in, is an application process annual basis, a code of conduct basically. What are the expectations? If you alter you alter the natural state of block 18 or any other block, then you're in violation and get that dock out of there. Okay, and that's what we do, and monitoring. You have to be, and I called it in here, but it is, if you're a member in good standing, that means you're abiding by the bylaws of the corporation, et cetera, the application, you're not having parties on the dock, whatever you want to call it, stuff like that. So that's what we're doing right now. It's already been done, documented, and approved by the RIA, the RIA board. And then finally, I'll say we've had 3 votes on the application that you're seeing in front of you internally with our board. It has passed 3 times, and last time by 80% of the homeowners. So we were pleased with that. We know we're not going to be able to satisfy everybody, but that's the rigor that we put into the process.
Okay, thank you. Committee, any further questions? Councillor Warren?
Through you, I just want to say this is really refreshing, and if Pat agrees with it, it must be okay. He's been through a lot, and I remember going through a lot of planning issues with this development way back when, so it's nice to hear that you've become more environmentally friendly now. Thank you.
No, thank you. Well, I could just add, Pat is the best neighbor you can have. My younger son got married at our house. Pat gives us his lakeside property to hold the tents and all that, because ours is hilly. So I just wanted to thank Pat, for that as well.
Okay, any further questions from committee? Seeing none, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak to the application? Anybody online, Joel? Anyone from the public wishing to speak to the application? Third and final time, anyone from the public wishing to speak to the application? Seeing and hearing none, committee? Councillor Warren?
I'll make the motion as written.
Okay, motion that report plan 2023-064, City of Kawartha Lakes official plan and Township of Verlum zoning bylaw amendments for Block 18, Peller Court be received for information, and that report plan 2023-064, City of Kawartha Lakes official plan and Township of Verlum zoning bylaw amendments for Block 18, Peller Court be referred back to staff to address public and agency comment and for further review and technical studies. Seconder for the motion, Deputy Mayor Richardson. Any discussion? Calling the question. All in favor? That carries. Thank you.
I made him read it.
That brings us to item 3.3, Plan 2023-065, an application to amend the Township of Emily zoning bylaw 1996-30, together with a draft plan of subdivision at 72 Valley Road, Omemee. Go ahead, Matt.
Thank you, Chair. So as mentioned, this is related to draft plan of subdivision and rezoning on Valley Road, known as Harvest Moon Estates. And the application is to rezone portions of the property and provide a modified plan of subdivision. One item that I wanted to bring to the committee's attention at the outset is that the public notice that was distributed with this application included an error where it identified the street address of the subject property as 72 Valley Road, which is incorrect. 72 Valley Road is the portion of land located here in the notch of the subject property. Unfortunately, that was provided as an indication in the planning justification report and then added on to the description of the property in the public notice. I do want to assure the committee that the public notice was distributed in accordance with the requirements related to the actual subject property, and that the location map did correctly identify the subject property that you see before you here. It's just a matter of whether or not the committee is concerned with whether the notice was appropriately provided, and if you'd like to continue to hear this item today.
Committee, I think we're good to carry on, are we not? Carry on, Matt.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. So the specifics of the application are to rezone portions of the land from rural residential type 2 and rural residential type 2 exception 4 to environmental protection zone and open space site-specific exception to facilitate a revision to the previously draft approved plan of subdivision. And the purpose of those rezonings are to recognize some natural features and to facilitate the creation of a stormwater management pond as part of the plan of subdivision. The submission is submitted by TD Consulting Incorporated on behalf of Harvest Moon Estates Incorporated. As I mentioned, this is related to an existing previously draft approved plan of subdivision for 51 residential lots. The proposal would reduce the number of proposed lots from 51 to 21. and as mentioned, recognize a number of environmental features. The materials submitted with the application include a planning justification report, a Stage 1 archaeological assessment, a stormwater operations and maintenance manual, stormwater management report, geotechnical report, minimum distance separation report, functional servicing report, site plan cost estimate, a traffic brief, hydrogeological assessment, environmental impact study, draft plan of subdivision, topographic survey, pre- and post-development drainage plans, grading plans, erosion and sediment control plans, plan of survey, and of course the application forms. One other element to this is that the revised plan of subdivision and the zoning amendment is intended to reflect minimum distance separation buffers from farm operations. This is related to provincial policy statement section. Sorry, I have the section here. Related to agricultural uses and development within rural areas. Related to the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan, the subject land is designated Development Plan Area 9. I'm going to move on to the next slide here so you can see the aerial. And this is the concept plan for the plan of subdivision, which is admittedly difficult to make out there. So the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan designates the land's development plan area 9. Section 31 prescribes the type of housing development that shall be permitted within this designation. It is located outside of a settlement area. However, with this designation, it states that residential development shall include relatively large single detached homes on large lots. It states that the principle of low density rural estate type development shall be maintained by establishing a minimum lot area consistent with the natural characteristics of the site, and the proposed zoning amendment would reflect those natural characteristics. The servicing requirements prescribed in the official plan state that development should only be established where soil and drainage conditions ensure suitable water supply and an adequate means of waste disposal. The application has been accompanied by an application to amend the zoning bylaw to permit a stormwater management block to facilitate, obviously, stormwater control. There is a requirement, of course, the development be serviced by an internal road network, which has been provided in the draft plan of subdivision and is supported by the traffic brief. There's no proposed change to the existing permitted uses, and any potential conflicts with the minimum distance separation formula for agricultural livestock would be addressed by this zoning bylaw amendment. In accordance with requirements to assess the impact of development on significant woodlands and wetlands as outlined in section 3.5 of the official plan, the applicant has submitted an environmental impact study, which is currently under review. And as with other applications we've heard today, we are still awaiting technical review comments on the EIS. The subject land is zoned Rural Residential Type 2 and Rural Residential Type 2 Exception 4 in the Township of Emily Zoning Bylaw 1996-30. The subject lands are approximately 26 hectares in size with frontage on Valley Road. As mentioned through the proposed amendment, the proposed development would comply with the minimum distance separation, as well as all requirements for lot area and lot frontage. And so there's no site-specific exceptions for lot characteristics. One component of this is the proposal to rezone the portions of the site to open space site-specific exception to recognize a stormwater management block as a permitted use and to recognize the minimum distance separation buffer on the northeast side of the site. which is represented by this arc that is shown on the drawing. This is to recognize a total of 10 barns within 1,500 meters of the subject lands, including one vacant barn on the subject property. The barn would be demolished to accommodate the proposed development, and a vacant barn located north of the site generated an MDS setback that was defined as greater than the setback from the subject lands and may have an area influence extending up to 172 meters into the subject lands. Despite the barn being vacant, it was deemed capable of accommodating up to 15 horses. And so without the demolition of that barn, the separation is required. Staff feel that the proposed uses are appropriate within the rural residential type 2 zone. However, further review of the internal operation of the site, including operational requirements for the stormwater management block and other technical review, is required before a final recommendation can be provided. Notice of the application was circulated to persons within a 500-meter radius of the subject lands. However, as I mentioned, that notice did have an incorrect address. The legal description was still correct on there, and so we feel comfortable that that people receiving the notice would be aware of where the subject lands are and what's going on here. At this point, at the point of writing the report, we had not received any public comments, but we have since received one comment from members of the public. And for agency comments, we are still awaiting a number of technical review comments. And so, given that we are still awaiting those comments, once again, we recommend that the application be referred back to staff until those technical reviews have been completed.
Thanks for that, Matt. Committee, any questions of Mr. Alexander, Deputy Mayor Richardson?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Thank you, Matt, for the update and presentation. Just a few quick questions. One being the difference, moving from the 51 down to the 21 proposed lots. Do you want to just give us a little bit further explanation on that?
Through you, Chair, I'm not familiar with the initial proposed plan of subdivision that included 51 lots. However, it's my understanding that the identified woodlands and wetlands, as well as the MDS separation, are what has resulted in the reconfiguration, proposed reconfiguration, and reduction in the number of lots that are proposed.
Okay, thank you. Another question. So with the technical review still outstanding, I know that one of the comments that was flagged to me was some concerns regarding the stormwater management block and drainage. I was wondering if you can maybe just give me a little bit more information on location and how we might manage that concern.
That is something that I'm afraid we will need to wait until the review. I don't have that part of the application handy. I can try to look this up for you if you like. Just bear with me for a moment. You saw the site plan drawing that I had up earlier, but it is not very legible. So I wanted to find something.
Sorry, and that's probably why I couldn't figure it out, because of the map being hard to read. So I apologize for that.
Just checking the circulation folders here. Yeah, sorry, I apologize for the delay here.
Maybe we can refer to Tom when he's up here.
Okay, any further questions of Mr. Alexander? Everybody good? All right, does the owner, applicant, or their agent wish to speak to the application?
Good afternoon, committee. Tom DeBoer with TD Consulting, representing the owner of the property. Thank you for the presentation and the clarification for the lotting. First off, the original draft plan of subdivision only had the 21 lots. We investigated the opportunity based on hydrogeological components for sewage and water usage on the property and came up that there was a possibility of 51 lots. However, once we determined the environmental constraints, the MDS constraints, we went back to the original 21 because that's really all that fit on this property. The stormwater management in this case, currently all the lands from Valley Road southerly drain in a southerly motion towards the east of the property. The owner currently owns the subdivision plan that is there, plus a reciprocal 50 acres to the east and another 75 to the south. The 75 to the south is actually not developable. It's actually currently a complete wetland. The proposal is to have the road network, the stormwater management facility, to capture the water for cleaning and for mitigation of the volume before it's released into the southern portion, which is an environmental protection zone, which is never going to be developed in anybody's realm, just to the significant nature of that feature. So that has always been the case once the subdivision was draft approved back in the 90s. And that same stormwater management process has been reviewed again with this configuration, and it still seems to work. So again, pending review from engineering and other departments. Obviously, the approvals are still pending. However, but that is the techniques and the process that we're using currently.
Okay, committee, any further questions of Tom at this time? Okay, seeing none. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak to the application?
Yes, Steve Ray here, homeowner on an adjacent property on Riverview Drive. So I submitted a list of concerns and questions regarding this development, particularly with the stormwater management discussion, because we currently have an issue with the stormwater management coming off that property as it stands. I'm located in the plan view. It's lot 15 of the compiled plan 3, known as 72 Riverview Drive in Omemee. Currently, my property takes almost all of the water that comes down the hill from that property, and it causes quite a bit of issues for me. The drainage from our neighborhood is very level, and there is very little opportunity for it to get out. We've actually had complaints in regarding the ditching and drainage in the neighborhood that have been not addressed very well. So we have an issue where the water coming off there causes backups, and I wind up with lakes in my yard, 12 inches to 18 inches depth right through April, May, and usually it's early June before it starts to dry up. So I have a significant concern for that. It affects my neighbors slightly as well, but mine is the lowest lying lot. And you can see by the contour lines how that hill drains into my area. So I'm very much concerned with this and would like to have access to all the available information regarding what is being done for the storm management plan. Hopefully it will improve on the existing situation, capture some of that water before it crosses the fence line. And I'm concerned with the development and the landscaping that will be done, that it's going to could actually make the problem worse, in that flow off of open land is going to go much quicker, off of landscape properties. So ditching and routing of that water is going to be very important. There's also concern for myself and my neighbors regarding the aquifer, the water supply that we all rely upon, just to be sure that it has been assessed, that the geological reports are available and possibly we get a chance to review them, just to make sure that we're not going to find ourselves short on water or contaminated by these activities.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone? Sorry.
I just wonder, have you had conversations with the developer or their planner about the watershed and the water flowing?
No, I have not. This plan, I guess, has been in place for 30 years. And this is an amendment to that existing plan. I've been at this location since 2009. So I wasn't privy to the earlier planning. This notification for this meeting was my first real notice. I knew that there was a plan going on because wells have already been drilled back there. But this is the first information that I have. And of course, as Matt pointed out during his discussion, the attached site plan is not very clear. One of the things I would like is if I could get an electronic copy of that I can zoom up and look at a little more closely. I had a few questions as well, regarding the soil report. And the contour interval, just to get an idea of what the elevations are here, because again, in the comments I submitted, I noted that in the area of, let me just see where, lots 5, 6, and 7 of this plan, which are the ones just south of my lot, is an area where currently there's standing water. So that's in the southwest quadrant of the plan. That's a very low-lying area where seasonally there is pooling in that area as well. So the drainage, it's going to be important for the properties there that the drainage be very adequate. Currently, that ponding stays there until mid-June, end of June, before that starts to really dry up in that area.
Yeah, I just wonder if Tom could be asked to give some information about that. You must have, have some concerns.
We get to that once we get through all the questions. Yep, he'll have an opportunity to respond to all the comments. All right, anyone further from the public wishing to speak to the application? Go ahead, sir.
Is that working now? Okay, I'm just going to start off here. I've written a few notes. Just I'm going to get kind of nervous, so I'll just try to do that to get myself through it, and I'll try to highlight the important things that I feel. I heard about this application for the zoning change and that about a week ago, so I'll just start there. So it was on November the 17th, 2023. I'm Rolf Bittner, and I'm standing at my home, and I admire the view. Yes, I close my eyes, and I see a picture of a horse on one side of the fence and beautiful large white cattle on the other side, grazing the grasses in the lawns of an unwanted subdivision of houses. And I'll just jump in here because I think I've been dealing with this back in 2005 when they put out another application to change some of the zoning. And I had issues with that then, thinking that some of the lands there could have been left as agricultural A1. They could merge with existing farmland, which we have abutting on the east side. Moving along here, yes, this land has been farmed since the 1840s. Crops and cattle from this land have enriched you every day and every year. This subdivision is fragmenting and destroying. There's approximately 200 acres in this parcel, so 198 acres of farmland, which to this day is feeding you the beef. So there were cattle on the property this day. Today is another day of building a safety net. And like you just heard the other gentleman say too, this was talked about in, I think, 1990, and they got some papers signed in 1993. And I was shocked to see this is now surfaced again, simply because there have been other attempts and different applications filed on this piece of property. There's a letter that was issued in 2009, October 9th, a deadline to meet registered subdivision and extended to March 10th, 2011. And through those discussions back in the early 2000, it was brought up numerous times why there were no timelines on this subdivision. And the director at that point said he would address that. So on the March the 24th, on 2009, Richard Denzer, Director of Development Services, granted an extension to the draft approval of the Plan T16T92007 to March 10th, 2011. He also confirmed that there will be no further extensions of draft approvals for this subdivision. And then there's a letter that refers to this on October 2nd of 2009. So I don't know why I'm even talking about this today. But I made an honest effort to try to find out some background things and speak of them or make others aware of what is actually happening. Again, like the other gentleman said, and you said yourself here, that the map's not easy to read. And over the last week since the 17th, like I virtually wasted my entire week trying to get a better map and trying to get some of the reports of all the geological studies or whatever has been done, because actually there's been a gap now for 11 years and we haven't seen any paperwork. And my name was on the list, and my wife and others to forward things that if there is any activity. A few other things just to point out there. Permit to the revised lot configuration that decreases the number of residential homes. And again, the other gentleman mentioned that too. The 51 were never approved. It was like a thought process, and I actually spoke to the person that started this plan. And he kind of laughed and thought, you're right, because there's so many factors about this property that doesn't make sense. And he went from trying to do a gravel pit to say, okay, let's do homes. And it's very different terrain. I know the map there shows some elevation lines, but they're not numbered and there's no heights on there, but there's over probably 70 feet difference from the hills and the lows. And the gentleman that just spoke there on the Zoom, that's what it looks like in his backyard. That's water sitting there. And most of the studies I did in the past were done in July and August, where that's had time for that to dry up. And or in his case, it's draining off. It's draining in his property. We're on the east side, and all that, if it doesn't drain that way, it's draining into our property as well. So yeah, again, I feel this whole application has expired back in 2011 of March. So yes, 21 lots. Another issue that came back at that time too was that all these properties would have to have septics and they'd have to have wells. So like, will it withstand all that? Plus there's 11 other properties in that surrounding. And the gentleman there that spoke earlier to the east, there's already a bunch of wells that are drilled in there. And is that adequate to sustain some more drilling and tap into that well water? And at the pass there too, the lot sizes were to be a minimum of 3 acres. I don't know what the layout is now or what size they are, but again, that was to satisfy the MOE. Yeah, the other thing too is back when the initial plan was put together, there were different restrictions, but they did come out and say that the draft proof of plan of subdivision was to be on, I think it was 30 hectares parcel and no more. And again, I said, if there's anything needing to be done with stormwater systems and other things, I guess, well, the EP and the environmental protection area, like all that should not just grow out from where the subdivision was approved to be on that lot. And again, I don't feel that there shouldn't be any housing there at all. It's not, the property's just not meant for it. Okay, that's pretty much the lot situation. I'll just slip over to the stormwater management.
Okay, so you're past your 5 minutes, so if I can just get you to wrap up your last few points, please.
Sure. Yeah, the stormwater is to have all the water that's created on that plan of subdivision controlled on that property and not drain, say, into the east property. Recognized for required separation distance from the livestock property. I have a map that's dated back then here with me that shows like there's setbacks for each farm that's there. And the one setback was from the northeast, which I see is on that plan, but there's also a setback on that's the northwest. There's a setback on the northeast, which is 460 meters. And that should be also considered for the separation distance. It's all agricultural land around there. And whatever happens to this, it's going to impact and put restrictions on agricultural land and farmland. Moving on, what else? Again, well, the last bulletin there is the environment buffer to the east side. I don't really know what will happen to that land, but I wondered too if that land shouldn't be like agricultural land and merge to another property other than sit there, and who will maintain it or what its purpose will be. And I think now I'm not sure all the zoning names and all that, but yeah, and that pretty much wraps it up for me.
Okay, thanks for your comments. I missed your name at the beginning, if you could.
Rolf Bittner, R-O-L-F, B-I-T-T-N-E-R.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bittner. Is there anyone else from the public wishing to speak to the application? Anyone else from the public wishing to speak to the application? Calling a third and final time. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak to the application? Seeing and hearing none, does the applicant or agent on behalf of the applicant wish to speak to some of the comments?
Absolutely. First off, the gentleman that was on the phone at 72 Riverview, I'd be more than happy to either meet with him on site or have a telephone conversation to clarify a lot of things. More than willing to share the information as well, so there's no secrets. I do apologize for the image that's on the screen. Most of that is due to the significant number of contour lines because of the extreme slope of the property. As it relates to the stormwater, we are aware that there is a depression in the southwest corner. We have had conversations with the Conservation Authority to ensure that it wasn't a regulated area. We've confirmed that it actually was dug by the previous owner of the property for cow watering while they were pasturing on the property, and we are permitted to fill that depression in. As part of the stormwater management regime as well, the entire property will be contained and graded appropriately to ensure that all of it flows towards the road network and eventually into the stormwater management pond, which should alleviate or will alleviate all of the drainage to the adjacent properties to the west. The other thing that I did want to mention, which was the last speaker, the land use for this particular property was established in the early 90s, which allowed for the draft plan to exist. Although the draft plan has expired, the intent and the planning rationale is still valid. The reason for this particular ask is to adjust the plan specifically to allow for the uses of the stormwater management block, a large environmental buffer adjacent to the east of the property. The use of that property is going to be simple. It's the recommendation of our environmental consultant to allow that to remain fallow in perpetuity, specifically for some threatened or potentially threatened bird species such as the bobolink to allow for nesting. Unfortunately, most of our agricultural processes destroy a lot of the nesting bobolink in the area. This is actually a 100-meter buffer, allowing a significant area for the bobolink population to do their thing in the spring. And then obviously the MDS has been updated because there was some changes to those requirements recently. And in order to ensure that the Planning Act requirements as well as the MDS requirements have been met, we reevaluated that with the appropriate consultant, and these are the new buffers, which are actually larger than the previous ones when the original draft plan was approved. So again, the rezoning for today is not to change the use per se of the subdivision. It's just to capture the new requirements to make this subdivision come to fruition. Any questions?
Any questions for Tom from committee? Okay, seeing none. Committee, what is your recommendation? Member O'Reilly?
I'll move the recommendation as printed that draft plan of subdivision Township of Emily bylaw amendment for part of Lot 4, Concession 12 and Valley Road be received for information at the report plan 2023-065 draft plan of subdivision Township of Emily zoning bylaw amendment for part of Lot 4, Concession 12 and Valley Road be referred back to staff for processing till review of the technical studies has been completed, and I'll speak to it.
Seconder for the motion, Member Barkwell. Member O'Reilly, go ahead.
I'll just be brief because a lot of things have been staff reports there to be read, and the consultant has answered many of the questions. I think many of the concerns of the deputies today will be addressed in the reports back from whether it's Ministry of Environment or Ministry of Agriculture or for the stormwater pond, et cetera, et cetera. So I think they'll be addressed, and the report will come back to council.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Calling the question, all in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. That brings us to item 3.4, Plan 2023-066, an application to amend the Township of Emily zoning bylaw 1996-30 at 10 Northside Road, Lindsay. Go ahead, Matt.
Thank you, Chair. There we go. So as mentioned, this is related to a Township of Emily zoning bylaw amendment related to the property shown on the screen, number 10 Northside Road, and the island property shown here located on Pigeon Lake. This is a rezoning to facilitate the development of a new detached dwelling on the mainland property and to permit the development of a replacement detached dwelling located on the island property. Both properties are in common ownership, but they are separate parcels of land. The land's known as 10 Northside Road in the Township of Emily currently includes a mainland lot, which is number 10 Northside Road, and backs onto Pigeon Lake. The subject lands also include this island lot. The lands are individual lots which share the same ownership. The mainland lot is vacant, and the island lot includes a detached dwelling. The applicant is proposing to rezone the subject lands from limited service residential exception 4 on the mainland lot and limited residential exception 11 for the island lot to permit 2 detached dwellings with including 1 replacement dwelling on the island and 1 new dwelling on the mainland lot. The materials submitted with the application include a conceptual site plan layout, a conceptual for both the mainland lot and the island lot, floor plans, a geotechnical report, an archaeological report, a hydrogeological assessment, a planning rationale, environmental impact study, and building elevations. Of key consideration here is that the island lot is currently zoned for environmental protection. I will get to that in more detail, but that has relevance for the provincial policy statement, which requires that certain natural features, that no development take place within provincially significant wetlands and other certain natural features unless it is demonstrated that there will be no negative impacts on the natural features or their ecological functions. In the City of Kawartha Lake's official plan, the mainland parcel is designated as waterfront, and the eastern portion of the parcel is designated environmental protection, and the entirety of the island parcel is designated as environmental protection. Within the waterfront designation, lands may be used for seasonal and limited permanent residential uses where they are adjacent to lakes and rivers. The environmental protection designation is intended to protect people and buildings from adverse impacts of flooding and natural hazards such as erosion. Some details related to the proposal. The geotechnical report and hydrogeological report are intended to address conformity with sections of the official plan related to water capacity and on-site water and sewage treatment facilities. The environmental impact study is intended to address policies related to the natural heritage features, and an stage 1 and stage 2 archaeological assessment were completed and submitted in support of the application. And they were circulated to local First Nations and city staff for review and comment. However, we are still awaiting technical review of those studies. Related to zoning, both the mainland and island parcels are located within the limited service residential exception 4 zone, and then have site-specific exceptions. The parent limited service residential zone typically permits a vacation dwelling or a detached dwelling and related accessory structures. However, the exception 4 zone permits only buildings that lawfully existed on the day of the passing of the exception. So it's intended to allow for pre-existing dwellings such as what's located on the island, but to prohibit any new dwellings from being built. The applicant is proposing to rezone the properties to allow for a new dwelling. The proposed new and replacement dwellings include the proposed new and replacement dwelling building yard setbacks, the coverage and floor area, and landscaped open space as proposed all meet the performance standards of the parent limited service residential zone. However, the interior side yard setback on the south side of the mainland property would require a reduction. Further review of the comments, of the technical comments, is required before we can provide a recommendation for approval or modification. Notice of the application was delivered to property owners within 500 meters of the subject site. We received 2 public comments as a result, and as mentioned, we have not received all of the technical review comments that we are waiting for on this application. Overall, we feel that there may be some merit in the application. However, we do require the technical review on the environmental impact study to ensure that no negative impacts would be experienced by the natural features. And given that, we are recommending that the committee refer this application back to staff until those reviews are complete. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Committee, any questions for Mr. Alexander? Member Barkwell?
Just once again, you know, the environmental impact study was done in December 2021, and we're still awaiting comments on that. I find it a little frustrating that it takes, you know, that's 2 years out.
Through you, Chair, you may need to. I may refer this to Richard to speak to that review timeline.
Certainly through the chair to the member. Yeah, sometimes studies are done quite some time in advance because they're trying to get an application put together. It does take time to schedule all those studies. You know, we get this application in this year, but the study was done for 2 years ago. That does happen from time to time. It doesn't necessarily mean it's just been sort of sitting on our desks for the whole time. But sometimes there are consultants get things done well in advance, or they'll just do one study at a time and hold on to them and then submit the package. But that's just sometimes how the scheduling goes. So, yeah.
Councillor Warren.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Part of the EIS, would that take in natural heritage?
Through you, Chair, yes, it would. So the EIS environmental impact study would look at the presence of natural heritage features such as fish habitat, wildlife habitat, whether there is presence of any endangered and threatened species, including plant species and animal species. It would identify where those features are located, as well as assess what the impact of the proposed development would be on those features, if any. And typically they recommend mitigation measures as well if there are impacts that can be addressed. And to build on the previous comment, sometimes those studies are prepared in advance, and further revisions to the proposal are made to address the findings of those studies. And so it is important for us to receive a review of this prior to making a recommendation.
Any further questions from committee? Member Willock?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Does it seem conceivable with the size of this lot that they can get a septic and well and that CRA would allow them a building permit based on your thoughts? It just seems very narrow.
Through you, Chair, I have some concerns as well related to the suitability of the mainland lot and proposals to rebuild a dwelling on the island property. And that is why we would like to wait until we have the technical review complete before recommending a decision on this.
Just as a follow-up, but the island lot already had... Sorry, if I may.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did just want to mention so the mainland property is proposed to connect to municipal services that are available along the roadway. So they, at least for water, I believe. I'm sorry. You'll have to take that with a grain of salt. Let me back that up with some confirmation.
I think Director Hawley is acknowledging that's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. It's municipal water in that area.
Just a follow-up question, if I may. In the island lot, there's a house there existing already, so they could renovate if they chose not to rebuild.
Through you, Chair, yes, they should be able to replace the dwelling within its existing footprint. I'm not entirely sure if that is their proposal or if they intend to expand the size of the dwelling.
Okay. Any further questions for Mr. Alexander at this time? All right. Seeing and hearing none. Does the applicant, owner, or their agent wish to speak to the application? Go ahead.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Michael Fry. I am a land use planner with DG Biddle and Associates. We are here on behalf of the owner, Mr. Kalal Chakraborty, who has owned the property for many years. And great questions from the committee. Thank you very much. If I may direct your attention to Appendix C of the Planning Committee report. I'd like to identify basically how simple the application is. That yes, there is sufficient land on the property to accommodate both a dwelling unit, parking, outdoor amenity space, and a septic system. The engineers in my office, civil engineers in my office, have reviewed that and have confirmed that the space is available. And the request for the the reduction in the side yard setback on the south is in order to provide that additional protection to the natural heritage system. So yes, there was an environmental impact study prepared. They determined the wetland boundary, the flood elevation, and from that, adding a buffer, they provided us with a development constraint. And those facilities that I identified, the parking, the dwelling, the outdoor amenity space, and the septic system, can all be accommodated within that development constraint. Likewise, for the island lot, again, the environmental impact study identified the shoreline, the wetland, the flood elevation, and then the development constraint, which of course is the buffer to any and all of those. You'll see on the north corner of the island, the existing dwelling actually projects into the development constraint. And for that reason, and for the protection of the future users of that building, we wanted to pull the building outside of that buffer. And we believe that, rather than replace the building in the exact location, it would be better for everyone from a public safety perspective to respect that development constraint and pull the dwelling outside. I'd like to thank staff for their continued processing of the application. We appreciate all the work that you've done. And yes, I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you for that, committee. Any questions for Mr. Fry at this time? Okay, seeing none. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak to the application? Anyone from the public wishing to speak to the application? Anyone else from the public wishing to speak to the application? I think we've got somebody online. Did you wish to speak to the application, Ms. Figura?
Hello?
Hello? Yep.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Hi. Sorry, I wasn't prepared to speak. I just submit some questions if this was permitted. We're just along the boating channel here, and we use it quite frequently. How would materials be transported to the island to build, and how would that affect the boating channel?
Okay, so do you, I see the letter that you've submitted, and you've got a list of questions. When we circle back to the planner, would you just like him to go down that list and answer those for you?
Yes, if possible.
Okay, is there any further comments you'd like to make over and above from your written correspondence?
No, there is nothing else.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else from the public wishing to speak to the application? Okay, seeing and hearing none, we'll circle back to you, Mr. Fry. Do you have a copy of those correspondence?
No, I have not received a copy of that correspondence.
Okay, I know city staff does, so that'll go through to you. So the questions in the correspondence were: how will the boating channel be affected? When will the work be scheduled to start? How long will it last? Where along the island shore will the dock be attached for moving material? And I apologize if I pronounced anything wrong. Will Kayal continue to use the dock for his personal boat following the project?
Yes, thank you. Thank you all. Very good questions. I would like to have the opportunity to discuss these with the owner. As we know, the the application before us today is a zoning bylaw amendment, and I recognize the interests of the neighbors in the potential impact of construction. I don't have the construction details because, of course, at this point we haven't created a construction plan. But at the time when we are further along through the application process, municipal staff will ask us to address the comments from the comments received via correspondence and through this public meeting. They'll ask us to address those comments and provide responses, and we would be in a better position to answer those at the time that were requested to by staff.
Okay, thank you. Manager Sisson, you wanted to comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the committee as well, in one of the responses to Member Willock's comment as well. I just want to note that the report indicates that site servicing is with municipal water, sanitary, and storm sewer services. That's not accurate for this particular application for either of the lots. So I think that's something we want clarified both through the consultants and to the party themselves, so that's all understood. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any further questions from committee at this time? Okay, seeing and hearing none, what would your recommendation to council be? Deputy Mayor Richardson?
I will move as printed to refer back to staff.
Okay, so a motion that report plan 2023-066 Township of Emily zoning bylaw amendment for 10 Northside Road be received for information, and that report plan 2023-066 Township of Emily zoning bylaw amendment for 10 Northside Road be referred back to staff to address public and agency comments and for further review and technical studies. Seconder for the motion, Member Willock. Do you wish to speak to it, Deputy Mayor Richardson? Any further discussion? Calling the question, all in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. At this point, this public meeting held under the Planning Act is now adjourned. Before we move into the rest of today's agenda, would the committee like to have a quick break? So it is currently 3:06. If we can meet back here at 3:11, is that enough time? Thank you. Okay, it's 3:11. We'll call the meeting back to order. So at this point, we have no deputations today. We have no correspondence, which brings us to item 6, regular and returned reports. Item 6.1, ENG 2023-026, registered subdivision agreement status update. Christina Sisson, go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you. Today I'm here to bring you the update to the registered list of subdivisions. We had hoped we'd have a few more registered by the end of the year, but there have been, numerous challenges with people getting their work programs together and the consultants providing information as well, and then getting some of those actual agreements through the registry office and actually registered. So to date, we have these subdivisions. The majority of these you can see have been built out or close to building out. So we are looking at an aggressive, opportunity through the next year to try to get as many of the subdivisions assumed as possible. Over the years, we have implemented various measures to try to keep our timelines tighter. Again, we don't control exactly when people can do things in terms of the market and how quickly they build out and how quickly they may be able to hire someone to get the paving actually placed. However, we have put different arrangements into the various agreements now, and we use some of those as indicators for the previous subdivisions, those that have been registered for a while, as impetus to try to keep people moving. So we actively project manage the schedule in terms of suggesting to them what are the dates for planning advisory committee meetings, for instance, and when would we need the information submitted by. For assumption, we're constantly checking, have you booked your, asphalt contractor to get the top course asphalt placed so that we can make sure that we can deploy our resources accordingly. And this is also part of the tracking mechanism used for the long-term financial plan, which I think is a great mechanism for trying to understand where are we in our municipality with the level of development that we're at today. So I'm open to any questions you may have.
Thanks for that, Christina. Any questions for Manager Sisson? Councillor Warren?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Phase 2 of Arizona Heights, where are we with that?
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Mr. Chair. So we are awaiting their design. We are at about second or third submission of design on Arizona Phase 2. We've just recently signed off on the hydro plan for that particular subdivision, but we are looking for them to resubmit with all of the information that we need to actually get towards an agreement.
Any further questions? Member O'Reilly?
Just a couple quick ones. Thank you, Mr. Chair, through Christine. The Island View Estates and Avalon Drive, amending agreement pending. What does that mean?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Member O'Reilly. I think this one I've even got in our chart as really being something we'd have to confirm with Director Hawley.
Okay.
Please.
It's not urgent, but yeah.
Through the chair to Member O'Reilly. The amending agreement is basically an agreement that allows this subdivision to actually go forward. Mm-hmm. It is registered, but what happened when they registered the agreement, all the open space blocks were supposed to be transferred to the township at the time. That was never done. So the problem is that you technically have an agreement that is kind of ineffective. There's also a lot of deficiencies in the subdivision. So this new developer, Aspire Sturgeon, has posted the security and will rectify all the deficiencies. And once that's done, then we'll issue them building permits for the subdivision. There's also a need for a condominium plan because the dock is a common area and they want to control that. So they have a draft plan of condominium that I'll probably be signing in a couple of days that will make this like a common element for the subdivision, and only those lots that have paid into it will be able to move ahead. There are, I think the developer has purchased 24 or 25 of the 28 lots altogether. And they're going to be moving ahead, selling them, and then building houses in there. So finally, after 32 years, we'll finally see some people living in there. So that's one of those old files that we'll finally see some life in it.
You can pass it on to the new director. Yeah. And thank you, Mr. Chair. One further one there at the Morningside over off Logie Street. There's 98 lots approved. It says construction. They just haven't started building on that. Is there anything further to be done on it, do you think, Christy?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the committee and Member O'Reilly specifically, yes. They have started actually building houses just recently. So this report was done prior to that happening. And all their underground infrastructure is in place already.
Councillor Warren?
I forgot to ask. So is the Rockaby, Bobcaygeon, Hillcroft Way, Spruce Side Drive, is that the one south of County Road 8? West Street?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, correct.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Richardson, did you have a question?
Did you see my hand go up?
Yep.
All right, yeah, I did. Actually, I was just going to make a comment. You know, when you start looking at this report, and when you look at the number of registered lots as opposed to how many build-outs are to come, and I mean, we're sitting at 297 in the forecast, but it'll be really interesting to see how we evolve the next couple of years when it comes to this this document as well. So I think it's a great tool to have.
Any further questions for Manager Sisson at this time? All right, could we have a motion to receive the report? Deputy Mayor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Warren. Any discussion? All in favor? That carries. That brings us down to our final and favorite motion of the afternoon. Anyone? Motion for adjournment, Councillor Warren, seconded by Member Barkwell. All in favor? Carried. Thank you for your time this afternoon, everyone.